I love this little arabesque. But one thing that strikes me about it is that exam boards often set it at the lower grades. Now, I'm not one of these people that thinks that you should wait until a certain time to play certain pieces. You do you play what you like, when you like. And if you want to play this piece slowly and gently and in your own way, that is absolutely fine by me. What I would say is that if you're struggling to play this piece at the speed or with the dexterity that you want, and you are at an elementary or in the UK sort of grade 1, 2 sort of level, then please don't be disheartened by that. People often chip in at this point and say, well, they're called Étude Facile, easy studies. But I think we need to dig a little deeper here. What did Burgmüller mean by that? Was he even being tongue-in-cheek? Or did he mean relatively easy? Did he mean as stepping stones to the more complex etudes by the likes of Chopin? This is a perfect example of a situation where practicing the thing won't necessarily improve the thing. In other words, if your integrated, flowing, whole body coordination isn't working harmoniously in any aspect, then you may continue to struggle with this arabesque. I think even the idea of a study can be misleading at times. I don't necessarily think that practicing this arabesque will give you the technique that you require in order to play it brilliantly and swiftly and expressively. You may have to find other avenues in order to cultivate the technique and then use the study as a kind of barometer of how successful you've been. And unless you've explored any of my other videos or you've had a look at my joyful online school for holistic technique, Piano Portals, you may be surprised at some of the activities that I'm prioritizing in this playflow. But if you are familiar with any of my work, you'll know that I don't believe strengthening or otherwise working on the fingers to be the solution to the dexterity and flow that you need to play this piece brilliantly. I'll pop back before the end just to clarify further one particular aspect of the technique required for this arabesque. But meanwhile, enjoy the playflow. semiquavers in this arabesque need in particular your forearms to be friends with your fingers and thumbs. In other words, you want your forearms free flexion and extension and rotation to integrate freely, harmoniously and spontaneously with your hands and fingers. Now this may already be working beautifully for you, in which case you can leave it alone and enjoy playing the arabesque. But if it's not, no amount of repetition of the arabesque may cultivate that. You may need to take a step back and find other contexts, flowing musical contexts, which invoke this coordination for you. That's essentially why I've created the Piano Portals patterns, but there is a free context here on YouTube that you could look into, which is in my troubleshooting technique with Twinkle Twinkle video, which I'll link to below. This utilizes the perhaps unorthodox but ultimately profound context of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and it explores it in different ways, specifically with a focus on the kinds of elements of technique that you need for this arabesque. And if you do choose to explore that context, you could actually extend some of the activities further to make them more relevant to the particular kinds of semiquaver figurations in this arabesque that often begin with the thumb, essentially morphing a musical, holistic, meaningful context, in this case Twinkle Twinkle in particular ways, into the technique that you need for the arabesque. And that hints at the whole idea of the portal. You may end up with something like this, as follows, or you may create your own playful, expressive pathways which unlock the technique that you need.